The hidden pain of loving someone you can't have. Have you ever felt your heart racing when you saw that person enter the room? Have you ever imagined 1,000 impossible scenarios in your head before bed? Have you ever smiled alone remembering a silly conversation, but that meant everything to you? And the worst part, you know that none of this can really happen. She's with someone else. He is your best friend. Circumstances simply do not allow it, and you're stuck in that painful limbo between desire and impossibility. This is the quietest pain there is. You can't talk about it openly. You can't ask for comfort. You can't even cry without seeming irrational. It is an anticipated mourning of something that was never yours, but that your heart insists on claiming. Millions of people live this agony in silence, hiding fake smiles as they die inside. Today we are going to dive into this invisible wound that corrodes the soul. Get ready, because what you will discover here can completely change the way you see this feeling. 1. The weight of silence that no one sees. There is a type of suffering that leaves no visible marks, does not generate tears in public, and does not appear in conversations with friends. It's the one you carry alone, like a secret too heavy to share. When you love someone you can't have, every day becomes an exercise in pretending. You wake up, go to work, study, smile, interact. But behind this mask there is a huge hole that no one can see. The worst thing is that the people around you go about their lives as normal. They complain about everyday problems, talk about traffic, the weather, lunch food, and you're there, agreeing, participating, but your mind is completely occupied with that person. You think about it when you're alone in the shower, when you're driving, when you should be paying attention to anything else. It's a mental loop that never stops. Society has not prepared space for this type of pain. When someone ends a relationship, there is a social protocol. Friends show up, bring ice cream, offer a friendly shoulder, say comfort phrases. But what about when you suffer for something that was never officially yours? How do you explain that you're devastated by someone you technically didn't lose? People don't understand. They minimize it with phrases like, "You'll get over it," or "There are other people out there." But these empty words don't reach the depth of what you feel. Then, you learn to hide. He becomes an expert in diverting conversations, in changing the subject when someone asks if everything is okay. You train your face not to show anything when that person is mentioned. It controls every reaction, every expression, every word. It's a gigantic mental effort that drains your energy every day. And there's more. You feel guilty for feeling. After all, this person has done nothing wrong. She didn't ask to be loved like that. He promised nothing. So why are you suffering so much? Why can't you just turn off that feeling like a switch? This guilt adds another layer of weight to the silence. You not only hide the pain, but you also punish yourself for feeling it. The silence is accumulating. Day after day, week after week. You keep every unspoken thought, every repressed urge, every moment you wanted to scream but had to swallow. This accumulation creates an absurd internal pressure. It's like an emotional pressure cooker that never finds an outlet. And the scariest thing is that no one notices. You may be falling apart inside while everyone around you thinks you're perfectly fine. 2. When imagination becomes your worst enemy. The human mind has an incredible power to create parallel realities. When you love someone impossible, your head works full-time building scenarios that will never happen. You imagine deep conversations at 3 in the morning, trips together, moments of intimacy, even silly details like grocery shopping next to this person. These fantasies are so vivid that they feel like real memories. The problem is that every time you feed these mental images, you're digging a deeper hole for yourself. Your brain can't completely differentiate between real and imagined experience when emotion is involved. So each fantasy reinforces the feeling, makes the desire more intense, makes the person seem even more perfect. You create an idealized version of it that probably doesn't even really exist. This happens because your brain is trying to find a solution to the suffering. It is as if he were saying, "Since I cannot have it in reality, I will create in the imagination." It seems like a consolation at the moment, but it is a false and temporary relief. When you come back to reality and realize that none of it is real and will not be, The fall is even more painful. It's like falling off a 10-story building every time you realize you've been daydreaming again. And you can't stop. Even though you know you're hurting yourself, your mind always goes back to the same places. You find yourself going over that hug that lasted 2 seconds longer, analyzing every word she said, looking for double meanings, creating meanings where there are none. Any crumb of attention becomes fuel for weeks of fantasies. Your nights are filled with these thoughts. You lie in bed and automatically start building stories. Imagine what it would be like to sleep next to this person, wake up and see their face, have coffee together. It creates entire dialogues where you finally confess your feelings for each other. He rehearses 1,000 times what he would say if he had the courage. And the more you imagine, the more real it seems, the more necessary it seems. The worst is when you start planning based on these fantasies. He changes his routine hoping to find her by chance. He chooses clothes thinking about whether she will notice. He frequents places where he knows she will be. All this fueled by an irrational hope that was born inside his head. You are living a story that only exists for you, but investing real time and energy into it. Your imagination also creates dramatized rivals and obstacles. You obsess over the person they're with, creating faults, looking for flaws, imagining breakups. Build scenarios where you are the hero who shows up at the right moment to console her. It's a movie script running in your head 24 hours a day, but you're not the director, you're just hostage to your own thinking. If you want to understand why you keep attracting deep but impossible connections, and how to finally break this cycle, discover the Jung Method in the pinned comment below. 3. Jealousy disguised as joy. Seeing the person you love being happy with another should be rewarding, right? After all, if you really love her, you want the best for her. But the unvarnished truth is that it hurts in an indescribable way. You force a smile as you feel your chest tighten. Congratulate. Send messages of support, like the photos on social networks, all while a part of you dies a little. This kind of jealousy is especially cruel because it comes mixed with guilt. You hate yourself because you're jealous of her happiness. You know that you are being selfish, that she deserves to be happy, that you have no right to feel this way. But feelings do not obey logic. They just exist, intense and uncontrollable, even when you know they're unfair. Every photo she posts with the other person is a stab disguised as a normal post. You see the two smiling, hugging, living exactly what you imagined 1,000 times with her. And you need to react neutrally, sometimes even commenting on something positive. It's like having to applaud while your heart is being shattered. You become an expert at separating what you feel from what you demonstrate. Jealousy manifests itself in strange ways. You start comparing everything about yourself with the person she chose. Appearance, intelligence, humor, success. Look for justifications to understand why it wasn't you. He creates theories, finds faults in himself that may not even exist. It's a constant self-torture trying to decipher what you don't have and the other has. There are days when you can be genuine. He looks at her happy and really feels a little bit of true joy for her. In those moments, you believe that you are overcoming, that you are finally managing to accept. But then something happens. A tender gesture between them, a shared laugh, a story told. And you go back to the same place of pain, realizing that you didn't overcome anything. You were just pretending well. The worst may be when they fight or go through problems. A tiny, shameful part of you feels hope. She thinks that maybe it's her chance, that you can finally be there for her. But soon after comes the enormous guilt of having thought something so selfish. You don't want her to suffer, but her unconscious heart still looks for loopholes to feed impossible fantasies. You learn to dose the contact. Sometimes he moves away so as not to see, not to know, not to suffer. But then it comes back because the need to be around, even if it hurts, is greater than the desire to protect yourself. It is a vicious cycle of approximation and distancing that solves nothing. It only postpones the pain from one day to the next. 4. The guilt that devours inside. When you love someone you shouldn't, guilt becomes a constant companion. It's there when you wake up thinking about this person. It's there when you feel pleasure when you receive a message from her. It's there when you realize you've spent the whole day mentally occupied with someone who isn't your own. It's a corrosive feeling that won't even let you suffer in peace. You feel guilty for several reasons at once. If this person is in a relationship, you carry the guilt of desiring something that belongs to someone else, even if only mentally. If it's a close friend, the guilt comes from betraying the trust of that friendship with unrequited feelings. If it's external circumstances making it impossible, you blame yourself for not being able to simply accept reality as it is. The worst guilt is the guilt you feel about yourself, for allowing this feeling to grow, for not having had enough emotional control to nip it in the bud, for continuing to consciously hurt himself. You know you're doing harm to yourself, but you can't stop. And this generates enormous internal anger, disappointment with your own inability to be rational. It is also the fault of wasting time. As long as you are stuck in this impossible feeling, life goes on. Other opportunities arise and you don't even realize why you are blinded by this person. Friends try to introduce you to other people, and you sabotage everything. Because deep down, no one compares to the one you really want. You are literally preventing your own happiness. The guilt intensifies when you realize how it affects other areas of your life. Your performance at work drops because your mind can't focus. Your relationships with family and friends become superficial because you are emotionally unavailable. Your mental health slowly deteriorates. And you know it's because of this situation, but you still can't change. You try to forgive yourself, but you don't know how. Feelings are not conscious choices, but you charge yourself as if they were. He tries to convince himself that it is not his fault to feel what he feels, but to the same extent he blames himself for not being able to stop feeling. It is an emotional paradox that has no easy solution. You get caught between accepting your feelings and punishing yourself for them. Guilt also creeps in when you finally try to move on. If you meet someone new, you feel guilty that you're using that person as a distraction. If you distance yourself from the one you love, you feel guilty that you are being cowardly or selfish. No matter what you do, the guilt is always there, whispering that you are making mistakes, that you could be doing it differently, that you should be stronger. 5. Signals that your body screams and you ignore. Impossible love does not live only in the head and in the heart. It manifests physically in ways that you may not even be noticing. Your body is constantly in a state of stress because of this unresolved feeling. It is like living on permanent alert, waiting for something that never comes, processing a pain that has no apparent cure. The first sign is usually sleep. Either you can't sleep because your mind doesn't turn off, spending hours going over conversations and creating scenarios, or you sleep too much as a way to escape reality. Fatigue becomes chronic because even when your body rests, your mind continues to work on this problem that has no solution. You wake up already exhausted as if you had run a marathon at night. Anxiety becomes part of the routine. Your heart races when you see this person or when you know you're going to meet them. His hands sweat, his breathing becomes ragged, his stomach turns. These are classic symptoms of anxiety that your body manifests every time you are close to what you want but cannot have. It's a fight or flight response, but you can't do either. Diet also changes drastically. Some people completely lose their appetite, lose weight without realizing it, forget to eat because they are too busy suffering. Others do the opposite. They seek comfort in food, eat compulsively trying to fill an emotional void with something physical. Your body is trying to cope with emotional trauma through dysregulated physical mechanisms. Pain without medical explanation begins to appear. Constant headache, tension in the neck and shoulders, chest tightness, stomach pain. You go to the doctor and the tests show nothing wrong. Because the problem is not physical in origin, it is emotional, manifesting itself through the body. Your body is literally getting sick because of an unrequited feeling. Your vital energy seems to drain. Activities that were once pleasurable lose their meaning. You don't feel like going out, getting ready, doing things you liked. It is as if this emotional pain consumes all your available energy, leaving nothing left for anything else. You become apathetic, living in automatic mode, just fulfilling basic obligations. The immune system also suffers. You get sick more often, you get whatever flu is circulating. It takes longer to recover. This happens because prolonged emotional stress weakens your natural defenses. Your body is so busy trying to cope with emotional pain that it neglects other important functions for your health. 6. The mourning of something that never existed. There is a bizarre type of grief that few people talk about. The grief of a relationship that only existed in your head. You are mourning something that has never been real, never had concrete form, never existed outside of your imagination. But the pain is as real as the loss of something tangible. His heart does not differentiate between losing what he had and losing what he never had but intensely desired. This grief is complicated because it has no defined milestones. In a common breakup, there is a clear moment of rupture. The difficult conversation, the decision made, the moment when both recognize that it is over. Not here. You don't have that closure. There was no official beginning, so there is no official end. It is an eternally undefined situation that prevents you from processing the loss properly. You go through the same phases as traditional grief. Denial comes when you keep entertaining absurd hopes, interpreting any kindness as a sign of romantic interest. Anger appears directed at yourself, at her, at the universe conspiring against you. The bargain arises when you promise to change this or that if you only get one chance. Deep sadness takes over when you finally realize reality. And acceptance, when it comes, is slow and painful. The hardest thing is that no one validates her grief. When you lose someone for real, people understand. They give time, offer support, respect your process. But how do you explain that you are grieving for someone who was never yours? People don't understand. They say you need to get over it soon, that you're exaggerating, that it wasn't even a real relationship. These words completely invalidate what you are feeling. You find yourself doing weird farewell rituals. Delete photos, block on social networks, throw away things that remind you of that person. They are attempts to create a symbolic rupture since there was no real rupture. But unlike a normal grief where you get rid of things that belong to the person, here you are getting rid of projections, possibilities, imagined futures. There are days that you think you're completely over it. He spends hours without thinking about that person. He feels light, almost free. But then something trivial happens. A song, a smell, someone with a similar laugh, and you go back to the beginning, realizing that grief is not linear. You don't get over it all at once, and that's it. It is a process that has constant comings and goings, advances and setbacks. The longing for something that never existed is absurdly confusing. What exactly do you miss? Of conversations that never had the depth you wanted? From a relationship that never got off the ground? From a version of this person that you created in your head and who may not even be who they really are? It is nostalgia for an unfulfilled potential, for an untrodden path, for a history not lived. 7. The trap of expecting the impossible. Hope is one of the greatest human virtues, but in this context it becomes your greatest enemy. You cling to a tiny, almost non-existent possibility, and build your emotional life around that waiting. It's like buying lottery tickets every day and planning what you're going to do with the prize you're probably never going to win. But instead of money, you're betting your emotional health. This waiting completely paralyzes you. You don't move forward because you're stuck in that possibility. You don't allow yourself to really meet other people because you're saving your heart for someone who may never be yours. It's like being in an eternal waiting room, with the difference that no one will call your name. You stay there, postponing your life, wasting real opportunities for an imaginary chance. You create signals where there are none. Interpret her every attitude through the lens of your hope. If she smiles at you, it's because she feels something special. If he sends a message, it's because he was thinking of you romantically. If he asks for help, it is because he trusts you in a different way. Your brain completely distorts reality to keep alive that flame of hope that should have been extinguished long ago. The worst is when this hope is based on vague promises or hypothetical situations. Maybe when I finish college. Maybe when she ends her current relationship. Maybe in the future the circumstances will change. You are literally betting on variables that you do not control, on uncertain futures, on changes that may never happen. And while waiting, the present goes unnoticed. There is cruel mathematics in all this. The longer you wait, the more emotionally invested you get. The more time passes, the harder it is to give up because it feels like a waste to throw away all that time waiting. It's what they call the sunk cost fallacy. You keep investing in something lost just because you've invested a lot before. But each more day waiting is another lost day of your life. Hope also prevents you from processing pain properly. To overcome something, you need to accept that it's over or that it will never happen. But how do you accept it when you still have hope? You stay in this eternal limbo, without completely suffering the loss, but also without being able to move on. It's worse than the two separate options because you're neither here nor there. Sometimes you try to abandon hope, you swear to yourself that you will stop waiting. But it's harder than it looks. Hope is addictive. It gives you small doses of imagined happiness that keep you coming back. It's like trying to quit an addiction. You can go days without feeding this hope, but a small trigger and you relapse. You go back to fantasizing. You go back to expecting the impossible. 8. How to turn this pain into a new beginning. Getting this far already shows courage. Recognize pain, understand its mechanisms, accept its depth. But now comes the hardest, and also the most liberating part. Turning all this suffering into fuel for a true new beginning. It's not easy, it's not fast, but it's possible. And it starts with a conscious decision that you deserve better than living in the shadows of an impossible love. The first step is the most painful, to definitively accept reality. Not the reality you desire, not the reality that could be in an alternate universe, but the raw, naked reality that exists now. This person will not be yours in the way you want. Circumstances will not magically change. This acceptance will hurt like ripping a bandage off a wound that is still open, but it is essential to begin real healing. You need to create distance, even if it hurts. This can mean different things depending on the situation. Maybe it's reducing contact. Maybe it's a temporary block on social media. Maybe it's avoiding places where you know you'll find her. It's not cowardice. It's self-preservation. You can't heal a wound while you keep poking at it constantly. Give yourself the space you need to start healing. Redirect all that emotional energy you were investing in this impossible person to yourself. That enormous capacity to love, that dedication, that intensity of feeling, all this exists within you and can be directed to your own growth. Start treating yourself with the same importance you treated this person. Invest in yourself with the same passion that you invested in it, even if only in your imagination. Allow yourself to feel the pain without judgment. Cry if you need to cry. Scream if you need to scream. Write letters that you will never send. Grieve properly this time by validating your own feelings. You are not weak for suffering. You are not dramatic for feeling intensely. Their feelings are legitimate, even if the situation was not real. Suffering is real and deserves to be processed with respect and time. Seek professional help if necessary. There is no shame in seeking a psychologist to help you navigate these turbulent waters. In fact, it's an act of maturity and self-care to recognize that you need specialized support. A professional can give you practical tools to deal with intrusive thoughts, anxiety, and all the emotional turmoil that this situation causes. Reconnect with other parts of your life that have been neglected. That hobby you abandoned, those friends you kept distancing yourself from, those dreams that were taking a back seat. It's time to bring all of that back. Fill the mental space that was occupied by this person with real, tangible things that really add value to your life. Rebuild your identity beyond this unrequited love. And finally, understand that overcoming it doesn't mean forgetting overnight or never feeling anything again. It means learning to live with the memory without it destroying you. It means being able to think about that person eventually without your world collapsing. It means opening your heart again to real possibilities, even with fear, even with scars. Starting over doesn't erase the past, but it creates a future where you're no longer stuck in it.